Think of a data engineer as a plumber, like plumber that does the piping for your house. Now, what's the job of a plumber? The job of a plumber is not just to get water into your house; it's also to get it out. I see a lot of people that I train Power BI, I teach Power BI, so I see a lot of people that do Power BI dashboards that they're so happy with what they've built, and then they put on LinkedIn and everywhere. And not to take away from the excitement, but you've built a report on your own requirements. If you have an Excel problem to solve, I give you an Excel problem to solve, and you know the formulas in Excel, but your sense of logic is flawed. You can't solve that problem. I have a very big issue with the way they teach Power BI. I have a very, very big issue. Maybe because I work with it, so I hate the way. Let me not say hate. That's too strong. I don't like the amount of emphasis they put on appearance. I don't think it's reflective of what the industry does or what the job really entails. So
A lot of data analytics training focus on Excel, Power BI, and SQL. Are these the most important things you need to learn to become a successful data analyst? Hello, guys. Welcome back to another exciting edition. Today, I'm joined by David, who is an accomplished data professional who is well versed in leveraging data to drive business decision making. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science and a second degree from the University of Westminster in big data and advanced analytics. Thank you very much, David, for joining me today. How are you doing?
thanks for having me. I'm okay. Rainy Manchester, but we're good.
Interesting. So, David, I'd like to begin with understanding your background. How did you get into data?
How did I get into data? So I would start with like maybe my first degree, and maybe that would connect the dots sort of because my first degree was in computer science. So it doesn't make sense to start the conversation from my first job because that's not really where everything really started. But then how did I decide on the first degree? The honest truth is the simple answer is I didn't really choose my course. So I did not even decide to do computer science. I just told my brother to give me a course that won't stress me. I'm not sure why he thought that was computer science because that clearly was not the case. But that's how I got into IT generally. And then I did an internship with Coca-Cola at some point, sideways, that 4 month one or yeah. I was just doing IT support. Then I think when I really, really got into data was after my second degree, after University of Westminster, which doesn't make sense because the degree was in data. But I'm saying I got in data after. So I got into that degree because it was the buzz at the time. It felt like the next big thing. That's why I chose that course. Not really because I knew what was happening in the course. I just did it because like this sounds like the next big thing. And then I went into the course and then I did a degree. Then I went back to Nigeria. Then I did a job at Coca-Cola as a revenue planning analyst. And that was my real first exposure to actual data beyond the courses online and what it really means and how it translates to business decision making. So for example, I used to analyze pricing for Coke, pricing, revenue, different things. And it's a very rigorous data analysis process. You would be surprised at how much work goes into just a can of Coke that you hold. You'll be shocked at how much data influences almost every single thing on that can. So yeah, that's how I started. And since then I've just gone from different levels to different levels really. Yeah.
That's interesting. So it's safe to call you an accidental data guy because obviously, if your brother hadn't chosen computer science for you, you probably wouldn't have done a
I'll probably
master's in data and then, yeah.
probably be in mass comm or acting or something, who knows? But
Wow, interesting. So, yeah, before we go deep dive into your brand of data, there is something I really want you to clear from the beginning. I hear business intelligence, data analytics, data science. Are they all the same? Are they just fancy titles? Are they all different? And which one exactly do you do?
so they're all data analytics. Let me start from there. They're all data analytics, but the kind of analytics that happens is what varies. So, for example, there's like a hierarchy to these things. So, let me start with data engineering, for example. Data engineers. Think of a data engineer as a plumber, like a plumber that does the piping for your house. Now,
Okay.
what's the job of a plumber? The job of a plumber is not just to get water into your house; it's also to get it out. Because if your toilet gets blocked, it's a plumber you call. So that's the work of a data engineer to make sure data flows in and out of the systems the way they need to flow. So those that need data for different things can easily pull the data they need easily. So for example, because the plumber has done a good job, there's water in the kitchen, there's water in the toilet, there's water in the bathroom, and all that water is coming from one source. But because the plumbing is in place, it can flow to different places and you can use it in different places. So that's what data engineering does. Basically engineers the flow of data in and out of systems. So that's what data engineering is. Then data analysis is like the first stop to getting into data. Usually that's most of the work that happens in Excel. So most people that work in finance and accounting already do data analysis. They just don't call it data analysis because they do data analysis that is restricted to a particular domain, which is finance. But what they do is data analysis. All the data they cook in Excel, they're analyzing data. That's what it is. Then data science is the more advanced level of data analytics that focuses on predicting the unknown, future forward, future facing. Let me put it that way. So data analysis is historical facing. I'm analyzing historical data, data at rest. Data science is forward looking. I'm trying to project into the future of what we don't know, what we think would happen. So that's the major differences in the direction they're facing. Data analysis faces historical data, data at rest. They deal with facts. So with data analysis, 1+1 must be 2. If 1+1 is not 2, there is a problem. With data science, 1+1 can be 2.3.4, and there's margin for error. Let me put it that way, because you're predicting what is not what is unknown. So that's what it is. Business intelligence is the art of presenting the analysis that has happened. So you can use that via dashboards, and that's what Power BI is for. The BI in Power BI is business intelligence. It's basically the communication layer of how you communicate data. So that's what BI is. Even though for BI to happen, a lot of things like engineering need to happen in the background, because you can only present data that you've modeled. You can only present data that is clean. You can only present data you've analyzed. So all of that happens in the background. Then BI is like, think of it like the icing on the cake. Okay, now we have all of this good stuff. Let's publish it in a way that is easier for you to see. Think of it like painting a house. So plumber has done his job. BI does the painting. I hope
That makes perfect sense. And to be honest, I just got a clear difference between. So I probably have always mixed up data analyst from business intelligence. If you were to use this same explanation you've just given in the Coca-Cola example, so from the point of someone's buying Coke, so how would you put in the engineer, the analyst, the data scientist, and maybe the BI person? How would you put all of them in different roles from the point of manufacturing a kind of Coke to me consuming that kind of Coke?
Yep. So I worked as a data analyst, meaning my job starts where the work of the engineer ends. So I go to the system, ERPs. In our case, it was SAP. It could be anything. So I go to the system, I extract data, then I run my whatever calculations in Excel. So that's the data analyst side. For me to be able to pull that data from SAP, some data engineering has happened in the background to make sure the data they're sending from the plants, Coca-Cola has like 20 plants. So to make sure the data that's coming from different 20 plants is in the system in SAP, to make sure it's in the format that I can extract. So that's the data engineering, because they've done all the background work to bring everything together. Because don't forget, for a business like Coke, you have manufacturing, you have sales, you have procurement. There are so many moving parts with so many different systems. The data engineer brings all of those data from the different systems and parts to make it easier for people like us to just go to one place, extract, and do our analysis. So that's I don't know if that gives you the picture that you want. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, it does. And then I'm a bit confused again, because the science part, you talked about it being forward looking, making predictive analysis. And then which of this, so engineering, analytics, and science, which of this is the entry part? Where do you come into this profession? Because I don't think a novice would come into data science, and engineering seems like a lot of technical moving parts. Where do I come in as a new beginner?
I think it's the analyst part, because it's easier to solve a problem when you understand where the solution is going. I don't know if that's the best way to put it. But as an analyst, you're doing these simple calculations. If you want to understand where the data you're getting where that data is coming from, then you can take it a step further to like, okay, you know what, let me go behind the scenes to see how this data comes together. That's the engineering part. So it's easier to start from the part where you just extract and analyze. If you want to go a step further to see how all of this data come together, then you can go a step behind the scenes to see what the engineering is like. And if you want to go a step further to see, okay, what can we do in the future with this data, then that's the data science. So data analyst is in the middle of the past and the future. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to focus more on the past, then you can tilt towards engineering. If you care so much about the future, you can tilt towards science. So it's like you're not really a bridge, but you're like the midpoint between what has happened and what's likely to happen. So data analysis is also the easiest to get into again, because you only did like Excel and maybe in some rare cases Power BI. As I said, most analysts in different companies that do accounting finance, they're data analysts. They just don't know they're data analysts because they think they're doing they call it's finance. They have names that they call in finance, but they're spending their whole day on Excel crunching numbers. And how is that not analyzing data? So yeah, that's the easiest place to start from, because the requirements in terms of skills and tools is lower. Exactly. And from then you have enough knowledge to want to expand. Let me put it that way. Yeah. If you go into data engineering as a starter, it will consume you because it's a lot. If you go into data science as a starter, I don't think it's smart, because you can't say you want to start learning about data by building a machine learning model. There are so many steps before you get to that. So why are you starting from that? You can't start building a house from the roof. you can't talk about future predictions without historical data. So there is a process, and I think data analysis just sort of gives you that sweet spot between what has happened before, what's likely to happen in the future, and then you can decide to go it that way.
Makes sense. So considering that a lot of our listeners are novices, entry level people, people who are just getting into the industry, I guess we'll be focusing a lot on the analyst part, because I believe being an entry level part, it looks like the one a lot of people would be more interested in. So let's talk about data analysts. What exactly, if you go into a little bit more detail into what they do, why do organizations want to pay a data analyst to come in? And I'm sure one of the best paying field you probably get into these days is data analysis. Why would an organization invest so much money in that kind of role?
Well, the answer is simple. When an organization does not use data to influence decision making, they are gambling. It's that simple. So if your decisions are not based on data, you're just going off what the CEO thinks is the right way to go. You're flying blind. You cannot fly a plane without. Imagine flying a plane without windows. Where are you going? You don't know. So you don't know when you're about to crash. So because you need data to influence decision making, you need people to help you make that data come to life. You need people to help you bring meaning to that data. And don't forget, this data, they come in millions of rows. So data in itself is ugly and stupid. It's meaningless. Somebody has to bring meaning to it, and that's the analysis. By combining 30 million rows of data into a one pager on PowerPoint, you've done a massive job by compressing so much information that looks like it's scattered over the place into something that is easy to communicate and easy to act upon. So that's why data analysts are they're super important to what businesses do, because you have all that data. All that data has so much information. The only way to get the information is by analyzing it. So how do you analyze it without the analyst? You need an analyst. I think that's the best way I can put it.
Yeah, interesting. So now I guess you already know my next question would be, how does one get to data analysis?
I mean, the easy option would say to get the skills, but the honest truth is the real learning can only happen on the job, unfortunately. So you can take courses, you can do these things that can prepare you for the job, but the real actual learning can only really happen on the job. So trainings are good, but they have a limit. And this doesn't have anything to do with the trainer or the platform you're learning from. It's just how things are. It's just the way the world is. Because until you have to solve a real problem, you don't really know if you know how to solve that problem. You can do simulations, you can do exercises. They give you an idea, but you have to really test real problems. So having that in mind, does that mean without a job you can't do anything? Absolutely not. You can take courses, you can learn a lot of things, you can try your own projects. What that does is you're building, should I say, data muscles. They might not be enough for you to ace or become a superstar on the job, but at least they're there. So it's like, think of it like you want to go for a marathon, for example. If two people go for a marathon, one has actually never run in their life, and one has been running maybe just 2 kilometers a week. They've not run a marathon before, but they've been running 2K every week. They're both going to struggle, but one is in a better position than the other one. So they've both not run a marathon before, but one has been running 2K, not long, but at least there's some running muscle in the person's system. So by taking courses, by learning things, by trying your hands on things, you're starting to build those muscles gradually. They might not be enough for you to become a superstar on the job, as I said, because the real learning happens on the job. But at least you're better positioned to learn faster on the job, because certain core principles will have registered in your head, even though they've only registered in theory. But now you're seeing practical, so you can easily connect the dots. Compared to someone that comes into the job and is hearing some things for the first time, you're not the same. So yeah, the real learning can happen on the job. Courses help you to be well positioned to get those jobs, and they make the learning on job even easier. That's what I'll say to that.
Yeah, I'd like a follow-up question to that. When you say the real learning happens on the job, is it that the kind of data you get to interact with in an organization would be different from what you can access in the current world? So I have a friend that also works in data, and he said some of these data are available for free. So it looks like that's a different opinion from what you currently have. So I want to get the clear understanding. It would say World Bank has this bank of data. So it was of the opinion that it's the same data they would give you when you get to work, that you can go to the World Bank site to see maybe of polio disease in Africa or something. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
It's not the same. So the publicly available data sets are not the same as what you experience in the job. And those data sets are public because they are for learning purposes. So the World Bank that is publishing world data for polio, they're not going to publish their financials data for you to go and analyze. So, and again, data gets its meaning from the domain where it is. So data is data. What gives data meaning is a domain. So the data in a Coca-Cola is very different from the data in a Sky. So you can't just grab data in a Pfizer, for example, pharmaceutical company, and think you can just go with it. It's radically different from what you get from a Unilever. So what gives data meaning is the domain where the data is coming from and where you use it. So what you learn when you're doing courses, when you're practicing, is nowhere compared to what you do it on the job, simply because you don't know the domain where the job will come from. So if you're doing World Bank data and then you get data that has to do with maybe Lloyd's, even World Bank data and Lloyd's Bank data are going to be radically different, because what they do as banks, they are banks, but they are different kinds of banks. So data an investment banker will work with is different from what a retail banker will work with. So what gives data meaning is the domain. Unfortunately, the domain is what comes with the job. When you're learning, you're scattered, you're all over the place. So you cannot really say you've mastered this particular kind of data. Well, you might get a job that is a completely different field and you have to relearn again. So the domain is where the real knowledge comes from. All your technical skills, they're transferable, but the domain knowledge is super important. So online data is good for practice, but again, the learning can only happen in the real world. And that's the For example, now you can't see SAP data online. So what's SAP data? What's SAP data? What's SAP extracts? If I say that to someone that's learning now, they might not really know what I'm talking about. But that's actually how you pull data from SAP. You have to like do some things to extract data that you need in SAP. Someone that has just done courses, you can't rough that. You cannot stumble on SAP. It costs millions of dollars to have SAP as a software. So there is no way you can see a free version of SAP anyway. Do you understand? And those are some of the limitations you're learning. So it's not the same. People that say it because it's easy to say, and again, it's just stress-free. Just say, go and download data from World Bank. Yeah, you can do that, but the honest truth is, it's really not the same. You don't know the questions you'll be answering on the job you're getting. When you take data online, you ask the questions you want and you answer the questions you want. When you're on the job, you answer the questions they want you to answer. Whether the question makes sense to you or not is irrelevant. You have to find the answers. So that's why it's very different. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Yeah, I think that's I love that perspective, because, and I think it's really interesting because you talked about something that I thought was key. It's until the work you're doing is able to impact a business decision that you would say you're actually doing the work. Because then you've given a report and they say, oh, based on the report this analyst has done, we're making this new decision to the company. And I think that's when the actual value is. That's where the actual value is.
And let me just use this to touch on something very quickly. So I see a lot of people that, I train Power BI, I teach Power BI. So I see a lot of people that do Power BI dashboards and they're so happy with what they've built and then they put on LinkedIn and everywhere. And not to take away from the excitement, but you've built a report on your own requirements, on your own terms, what you think is nice, what you think you like. The honest truth is, on the job, you're not even a user of your report. You're just a builder. So it's nothing about the report is up to what you think or how you like. And that's a very different perspective to look at dashboards, because on the job, if as a user I don't fancy what you fancy, you can't use it. It's useless. It's a distraction. You take it out. So yes, it's nice to have those things. It's nice to understand those skills. It's also important to not get too carried away in those things, because on the job you are not even a user of what you build. You have to understand that. So your liking it is not enough. The users have to like it. In fact, if you like it and they don't like it, it's pointless. They are the users. You are just a builder. So it's important to know that. So yes, not to dampen anybody's spirits. It's fine. Enjoy the development. It's cool. But remember, when you get that job, you are not the user. So your opinion is, especially when it comes to the appearance, they might just get advice from you, but ultimately it's the users that decide. That's different.
Yeah. So those fancy charts and those pie, it's all good, but you should always remember that it's always from the user perspective, right?
For a learning course, it makes sense, because how else do you show that you've learned something? But on the job, it's the list of problems. You have way bigger problems to deal with. I promise you, presenting data is the easy part. Bringing that data together to get the numbers that you actually want to present, that's the work of the real analyst, not to present it. Presenting is the icing on the cake. Without the cake, there's no icing. So that's the real work.
Interesting. Often I hear about things like data cleaning, data formatting. They say you get raw data and you have to do. So before I go to that, you touched on skills, but we haven't really gone into details of what are those skills. So you said being a data analyst, you have to have the skills. So what are those exact skills that are needed to become a data analyst?
I think the most important one that doesn't have to do with any particular tool or software is logic. You need to be able to process problems and fix them logically before even typing a formula or doing anything. Like, the logic of the process of what you want to solve is way more important than how you go about executing that logic in Excel, Power BI, whatever language you want to use. So people focus a lot on the tool, but the tool is a tool, right? So the real work is in the logic of how you determine or decide to approach a problem. Then you can now transfer that logic or execute that logic using a tool of your choice. But the tools obviously are like Excel and SQL. So for example, if you have an Excel problem to solve, I give you an Excel problem to solve, and you know the formulas in Excel, but your sense of logic is flawed, you can't solve that problem, because the formulas are only useful if you know how to apply them. So you know how the formula works, but if you cannot recompose that problem in a logical way that you can express that same logic using a tool, then your knowledge of formulas is not really relevant because you can't solve the problem. So when people learn Excel formulas but cannot answer questions in Excel, do they really know Excel? And no, they don't. And again, it's very common where you hear. So for example, I don't do an Excel course because everybody thinks they know Excel. That's the honest truth. But guess what happens? Everybody knows Excel until they give them an Excel assessment for a job.
Yeah,
So do you really know Excel? You see, and most times what those assessments test is logic. It's logic. Nobody will tell you what is VLOOKUP. That's irrelevant. If I give you a problem and then you use VLOOKUP to give me the answer, yes, now you're talking. Not what is VLOOKUP, what is SUMIF. So everybody knows Excel until it's time to actually do Excel. And then you see issues. So that's the thing. It's the logic. If you can process a business problem, a business question in such a way that you can decompose the different parts, how they connect to get to what you want, then doing that with a tool is easy because you've done the hard part. Now it's just a matter of, okay, how do I do that in Excel? How do I do it in Power BI? You are crystal clear on what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So I think logic is probably the most important thing. Then every other thing, I think you can find your way around by just learning the ropes.
Interesting. So you talked about Excel, and I know Excel is proprietary to Microsoft. Is that the only that is that the most used one, or are there other vendors that are also industry leading for analytics?
I mean, I know there's some other ones, but to be honest, nobody. There's some spaces that nobody can compete in Microsoft in. And
Yeah.
you see that Excel, it's so ingrained. It's too ingrained in the fabric of business for you to be replaced. Like it's too deep. You get Excel has gone too far to be replaced. That's the reality. So even
So
if
what
there
is
are
this
other vendors,
argument I see online about Google Sheet and Excel comparison?
Google Sheets can't do Excel. Do you know what Excel can do? Google Sheets is just a tool that makes it easier for you to view Excel stuff without Excel. So you might be able to do some functionalities in Excel, but not as they didn't create Google Sheets to be a rival to Excel. That's what people need to understand. It wasn't created to be a replacement for Excel. But they created Google Sheets, so if you don't have Excel, it's not a showstopper to see what is in Excel. Do you understand? So it's not a rival. There's no app for Google Sheets, for example. It's not a competitor. So there is no way on earth you should be comparing Google Sheets and Excel. One is a creator, one is more of a viewer with small options to do one or two things, but Excel is way, way, way beyond Google Sheets. There is nothing to compare at all.
Yeah. I completely agree with you because myself, I was really shocked when I saw the extent of what Excel could do. I used to think Excel is all about putting things in column and rows. And I saw what people are doing with Excel, especially people in GRC in my company, and how they would now it was just too much. I'm like, no, Excel can do all this.
When I was doing revenue planning, the things we did with Excel, I've never done, even till now, because I've not really used Excel like in my current jobs. The things we did then with Excel, I've never seen Excel do things like that before in my life till today. So the things Excel can do, trust me, it's immense. It's ridiculous. And Google Sheets is nowhere close. There's no alternative.
Yeah. And if I could quickly bring back to, so if you remember our first interaction was when I had one issue with it. I had an issue that I needed to fix in Excel. And I just came on Twitter to shout like, who can help me with this? And again, this boils back to the first thing you said when you talked about logic, because I didn't come to ask, in fact, I didn't know it was something maybe VLOOKUP would fix. I didn't come to say who knows VLOOKUP. I said, I had this problem and I need someone to fix it. It was when you saw my problem that you now said, oh, okay, this is what would fix your problem, VLOOKUP, which goes back to the point you made earlier about it's all about how you can reason first before. So if you had cram VLOOKUP, you wouldn't even know how to apply it in that case if you don't. Yeah, I completely agree with.
The solution to your problem was a very simple thing. The work was in the logic. So even though I used VLOOKUP, someone else might have used something else and we'll get the same result. But as long as the logic and of what you want to achieve is clear in your head, it might not be VLOOKUP. So again, those formulas are formulas. Tools are tools. Someone using Power BI, someone using Tableau. They're not really doing things differently if you understand what you want to do. But the logic is clear in your head. You know exactly what you want to do and how to get there. Then how you go about executing that in the tool will vary from person to person. Two different people cannot solve the same Excel problem the same way, especially if it's not like a direct calculation question. So if it's not like, what's the average of this? So that's straightforward. But if it's like you want to interpret data in certain ways, it's very unlikely that two people will approach it the same way. Again, because it's all in the logic and how you execute will differ from one person to the other. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I was gonna leave this question for towards the ending, but I want to make sure we don't lose the line of thought. When you talked about the fact that most of the things you learn in trainings are not they're not like, "Oh, this is exactly what you're going to be doing on the job." They are preparing you. So how do we talk about I see some other training providers around. I know you're always very clear with your courses and offerings on David Academy, and you set expectations right. You see some adverts or banners and talk about become a data analyst expert in 6 months or 6 weeks, zero to hero. Are you saying these are like either clickbait or there is no way you become a zero to hero in 6 months? Is that correct?
I'm not even a hero and I've been working for 5 years, so it's absolute nonsense. It's as a matter of fact, that was probably the biggest motivator as to why I opened the Daddy Academy. So people think I opened the school because I wanted to trade. Not necessarily. I was angry at something that I heard, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. So that's why I opened the academy. It was more like a reaction to a story I heard. And I'm like, what? Why are they charging you for that? And I'm like, you know what? Damn it, I'm going to put my hat in the ring. Because there was a guy that paid for a BA because I think he paid 118 or 19. He was just said it casually, like, you paid what? So I'm like, okay, what are they teaching you guys? He said, I teach them blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, no, give me access to your like learning portal. I want to see what they actually teach you guys. And I went there and I saw the quality of the lecture and everything. And I was very disappointed, to be honest, because I just could not draw a line from what they were doing to what they were charging. It did not make any sense to me. And the next day, I actually launched my website. The very next day. And so David Adi Academy was not in the incubator for long. There was no thinking or planning. It just went boom like that. But even when I started, I didn't want to start alone because I always like to partner with people that do things. I think it's easier that way. So I looked for different people to partner with, but I just could not find someone that could give me the level of stuff that I wanted. So I just had to do mine on my own, and that's how it started. So you cannot be a hero in whatever course in 6 months. It's absolutely not possible.
Yeah.
I just said the real learning happens on the job. So how on earth do you want to be a hero before you get the job? It's not possible. Obviously, you can learn, you can build the muscles. Again, let me use another example. It's like you see boxers now, before they go for a match or a fight, they train hard, really, really hard. They train really, really hard. They push, they push, they push. Is it always the same as the fight? Absolutely not. Every boxer is confident until they get in the ring. When you get in the ring, you don't know. That's where the real test happens. So it's the same. You can do all your fitness, all your training. You can be the most aggressive trainer in the world, but once you step foot on the ring, it's a different world entirely. It's the same thing. When you learn, the moment you get into a job, then the real learning starts. And it's very different.
Yeah. Again, because it wasn't my territory, I thought, because I was always very clear with people when I tell them for cybersecurity, for example, you can't become any expert, even intermediate in 6 months, it is not possible. I remember my social media handler was saying we should create a banner to say, I'm like, no way, this will never be associated with my name to say zero to hero.
One of my handlers even suggested one time that I should cook up reviews. I'm like, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
It's not that serious. And again, it takes two to tango. So as much as you want to blame the trainers or academies or institutions that do that, we also need to question the mindset of those that go for it. Because why do you really think you can do a course for 4 months and you can stand side by side with someone that has done it for 6 years? Like, what level of arrogance and let's say ignorance will make you think that way? It's just not possible. It doesn't work that way. So, and that's why when I even advertise my course, I don't really like people that are looking for jobs. I understand that sometimes I have to get them, like they need jobs, but I prefer to. My best students are students that are actually working. My best students are people that are working. You know why? They are there to learn fully, and also it's easy to apply what they're learning on the job. So it's easier for them to learn. But someone that is just learning from in a vacuum, that is not really working, it's not in the work environment, they can learn, but there's a lot of limits to what they can learn because they can't really apply, they can't try things. But people that are already on the job, they might see one or two things at work that connects to what we're doing in class, and it just makes it easier. So yeah, that's unfortunately, until you get the job, it's really not the same.
My next question is also something very interesting because you see, again, I ask all these questions because these are some of the things you see out there, and you never get someone, especially in a position like yours, to set the record straight. These are people currently in the role doing these things for a living. Someone says go for data analytics if you're looking for something non-technical. And with all the discussions we've had, we've talked about analytics in terms of, we've talked about data cleaning, we've talked about, and someone says go for data analytics if you are trying to do something non-technical. It doesn't make sense to me. Is data analytics a technical or a non-technical field?
It's a technical field, but there are different levels to do technicality in the field. So it's a technical field, but technical level of Excel is different from the technical level of Databricks, for example. So they're both technical, but they're on different parts of the spectrum. So Data analysis is like the first step. It's not, I want to say very technical, but even Excel, people say Excel is not technical, but it's because you've not seen real technical problems that you need to solve in Excel. If you see technical problems in Excel, then you will know that Excel is actually a technical tool. I think I've lost my train of thought, but yeah, it's nonsense. Anybody that says it's not technical, it's nonsense. I can understand why they might think that. But then again, it's a case of empty barrels making the loudest noise. It's that simple. I don't think anybody in the field will come out with that level of arrogance and say it's not technical. It's technical, but obviously there is a spectrum as to the level of difficulty with the technical. So there is simple technical and there's very complex technical. So that's what I would say.
I think what might inform ignorant things like that would be, when you see, again, when we talked about this fancy Power BI dashboard and you think, oh, this is all you have to do, where just the data is there, it's just for you to turn it to pie charts and graphs.
Exactly.
I'm like, everyone should be able to do this.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I have a very big issue with the way they teach Power BI. I have a very, very big issue with it. Maybe because I work with it. So I hate the way, let me not say hate, that's too strong. I don't like the amount of emphasis they put on appearance. I don't think it's reflective of what the industry does or what the job really entails. So and that's why even my students, we don't spend time doing all of that. I'm not going to drag you to do 10 colors. I'm not going to, no, we don't spend time on that because I do the job and I know that I promise you that's the easy part. That's not why they're going to pay you all that money. No, that's the easy part. But before you get to that visual, everything before that, that's the work. That's where you should spend the time. And when I get people that approach me, I've done this course, I don't have a job, Power BI, blah, blah. Even people that still don't do the course and they say they've done it before, I actually give them a project to do to test if they know Power BI. And not one person, I'm not joking, not one person has been able to come back and say they did the project. And yet you say you did Power BI. What did you do in Power BI? They gave you data. They told you to do pie charts. No. What I just give them is set of requirements and access to data. I give them access to a database. Okay, these are the business questions that we have. Go and answer them using Power BI. And they struggle. They struggle a lot. And that's because they've spent so much time on learning the tool that they forget that the tool is a tool. The tool is a tool. It's a means to an end. If you don't know the end you're going to, the means is irrelevant to you. Because if you don't, how do I put it? Let's say if I want to go to Nigeria now, I know I'm going to Nigeria. There's no way I can drive to Nigeria. I have to fly. The plane is the means, right? Now imagine I have the means, the plane, but no destination. It's useless. There are places that I need to go to that I cannot fly, I cannot drive. I have to take a ship or a boat or something. That's different. But if you focus on the means and you're not really clear on where the end is, then you've not really done anything, which is what many people do with when they learn Power BI. You learn all these things, you learn all the visual, but I give you a business problem you cannot solve. You say you can use Excel, you know all the formulas in the world. Okay, now this is a business problem. Bring all these formulas together and make it work. You don't know how to do it. The question mark is on the logic. The logic is where all the answers are. If you want to get the logic of a problem right, bringing the answer to life in whatever tool you prefer will not be difficult. Not like it will not be difficult, but at least you can be struggling with something, but that's because you know what you want and you're not getting it. So you can have an issue at work that you're struggling with something for like maybe 1 hour. You're struggling because you know what you're getting is not what you need or what you want.
Yeah.
Without the logic, you would not even know if you're doing rubbish. You just be doing it. Without the logic, you don't even know the end you're looking for. So for example, sometimes I'm doing the report, I'm working on data, and midway I'm like, nah, these numbers don't make sense. I don't know why, but I already know they don't make sense. And then I take a step back, like, okay, what's going on? And then I say, oh, this is doubling, blah, blah, blah. So again, those are things that come with domain knowledge, with experience. But yeah, it's not just about the tool. The tool is a tool. You can build a very beautiful Power BI report that is full of complete nonsense. Have you built a report? No, you haven't. You just wasted time.
That was a well-detailed one, and I think a lot of people will definitely learn a thing or two from that. Now, let's move to a different section where I would focus on a lot of questions I get asked, especially from immigrants like myself. Coming into a country like the UK, a lot of us would probably start to do things that is not exactly our long-term goal or what we want to do in the long term. So for example, you might end up in the care sector knowing that this is not what I want to be doing 5-10 years from now. My end goal is to become a data analyst, but I'm stuck in this job for say 3-4 years. What are some of the things I can start to do from now to prepare me for that point where, I've got a freedom to either change my job, go for something I really like? What are some of the things I can start to put in place from today?
Firstly, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are two types of learning. There is when you learn because you have to learn. So for example, you get a new job and they've given you work that you don't know. You have to learn because to keep the job, you have to know it. That one is easy because the consequence is very clear. If you don't learn it, you are going to be fired. So nobody needs to motivate you. It's crystal clear. Then there's the learning where there is no pressure, like the one you're referring to now, where you're trying to learn on your own. It's on a need to learn basis or on a want to learn basis. So it's on a want to learn. The first one is need to learn. You need to learn. If you don't learn, you're out. The second one is on a want to learn. I want to learn. So there's less pressure. There's no real consequence. It's just a desire that I want to learn. It's extremely difficult. Let's establish that fact. It is extremely difficult to learn using that want to learn means because it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of commitment, it takes a lot of seriousness, which is not easy. But having said all that, it's possible. It's baby steps. Learning compounds. So today you learn this one. Say for example, now I've just before we started recording, I was talking about how I'm having to shoot videos. I'm having to learn lighting. I've learned all that, and from there I've learned graphics. I've learned video editing. So learning compounds. Like no matter where you start, you're just adding on to it. It might not be connected in that moment, but you don't know where it will come together in the future. So I would say, firstly, it is hard. So make no mistake, it's not laziness. The fact that you want to do a course and you've not done, it's not because you're lazy. No, it's hard. Even for the most advanced people, it is extremely difficult. So by acknowledging that fact, you don't need to be too hard on yourself. But still, you can try, push, and make the effort, and also speak to people. Try to get your hands on things that you think you can help with. So do courses. I strongly recommend taking certifications if you don't have a job in a particular field you want, and because that sort of helps you to make the case that you know what you're talking about. Because without the job experience, without the degree, it's extremely difficult to make your case that you know what you're saying. But where there is no job experience, you don't have the degrees, and you have a certification from a recognized body, an automatic ticket, but at least you get a chance to say, okay, I've done something. There is something to show. Me, I don't have any certification, but then again, that's because I have the degrees and the work experience to support my case. So that's why I've not really done any exams, because I have the degrees that I can use. I have work experience that I can use. If I do not have any of that, my easiest ticket to opening certain doors might be to get certifications. So but again, make no mistake, it's difficult. It's extremely difficult, even for the person talking to you here. So learning is hard. It's very, very hard, but you just have to keep trying and taking it step by step, and it compounds. Learning compounds. Let me put it that way.
So let's say now we have a highly motivated, highly disciplined individual who's understood the fact that it is not an easy journey, and they would like to start taking those baby steps. You talked about taking courses and certifications. I'm guessing there are entry-level courses and certifications, which I believe would probably be one of the offerings from David Ade Academy as well. Like, awesome. Are you developing courses for people who are already on the job, who need to update their skill, or are you developing courses for people who are absolute novice coming brand new to the industry?
So all our courses are for beginners. Let me start from there. And sometime last year, we tweaked our learning model to include certifications. And why we did that was because I was training a lot of people. They knew the stuff, like I was very confident in their abilities, but we were still struggling to get them jobs. And why we were struggling to get them jobs was because they didn't have the work experience. So how then do you make the case for them? That's why we brought in the option of certifications. If, for example, you do a Power BI course with us and you want to go ahead and write the exam of Power BI, which is like PL 300, we will prepare you for the exam because we've trained you, so we know you know it. Do you understand? So we know you have the knowledge. It's just to like give you like small tips and guide you to actually write the exam, so you get like a confirmed certification that you know it. So we that's the model we operate in. We train you. We are confident in what you know. Then we try to prepare you for the exam, so you actually get a certification. It's not that easy. And yeah, also to address the issue of work experience, we actually have an entire business that we created for that, to give people UK work experience. So I have a completely different business entity that is just for my students, to give them valuable UK work experience. It's still in, I mean, it's not at the level we want it to be at, but we already have a few success stories. So at least that model has produced some results. Maybe not at the level that we would like, but we have some success stories. So yeah. So again, that's
the work as if they are in organizations doing actual work. And
Yep. It's a business, actually. It's a real business. So it's not like a dummy business. It's an actual business that we're trying to get real clients for. The point is, for when the work comes, the students do the work, so they have actual work experience. That's the plan. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just trying everything we can to get them into the market. The journey doesn't end at when you pay us, and you can. I don't know if you have people that have trained with us, but we actually try to go as far as possible to do everything we can. Obviously, sometimes we don't get it done because it's not really up to us. We can only try, but we try everything we can to try and get you to the system. For example, if you've ever done a course with me, with us, you have access to me for life. It's that simple. So even if you did a course with me like 4 years ago and you have an interview tomorrow, if you call me, I'm going to pick up. I have to pick up. It's not like I'm good, so I have to. So that's the pact that we have. I have an alumni group on WhatsApp where all my ex-students are. So we don't release them. We keep them. You don't have to say anything, but the day you need help, be absolutely sure that
Yes.
there is someone there to answer you. We're just trying to do what we can, really. Yeah,
I think
that's it.
I completely agree with you. We also we do the same model as well, making sure we're building a community around learning, not just learn and go. So we want to make sure that we're able to support you post training as well. And I think it's been very beneficial. I have a friend, in fact, we've turned friends from being trainer to trainee and reached out, got their first job, prepared for interview, got the second one. And it's been a very good. Again, another question I'd like to ask, which is from my own experience being a trainer. I don't know what your experience is I think it's the perception that people come in with when they come for this training. Like, when I'm done with this training, everything would work. And again, I always say, I tell my trainers, I'm like, these are adults. There is a limit to what you can tell people to do. Like, you can't force people to do something. You're not in secondary schools or where you say you must do this assignment, you have to do this. So if, for example, I give an adult an assignment to do and they come back and they don't do it, I probably not say anything and just let it slide because obviously, I feel like it's one of those challenges. What would you say to people who would go for courses with expectations like they have to be spoon fed for everything? What kind of mindset do you think someone should be going into when you're going for trainings like this?
Only going if you're ready to learn. I'm not going to lose sleep over a student that I don't think is ready to learn, even if you've paid me. You've paid me, but if you pay me to train you and I train you and you don't want to be trained, I've delivered on my promise. I've done what you paid for. Unfortunately, you have refused to see the value in it. So I'm not going to chase anybody for assignments. Absolutely not. It's adult learning. We're grown-ups here, and which is why we don't beg for students. We don't beg. You never see me beg anybody to buy a course. No, absolutely not. If you come into our doors, it's because you want to learn. When you come into our doors, our job is to make sure we teach you. If you now say halfway you're tired, there's nothing we can do. We don't like it. We don't look forward to it. But if it happens, there's nothing we can do. So I'm not. I mean, I've only had one case of someone that sort of claimed that they did not get value for their money. Only one instance. Interestingly, this person's attendance rating or attendance for the course was less than 30%. So now the question is, how are you supposed to get value? How are you supposed to get value if your attendance is at 30% of the cost? So yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, David, speaking about AI and how much resources and how much access we have to chatbots and AI models today, how do you think this has influenced the learning of data analytics?
Also, I don't think AI particularly changes the fundamentals of learning. I think the basics are still the basics. How you learn is pretty much still the same. I think AI might help you structure your learning, give you access to more resources, point in the right direction. But I think the fundamentals of how you learn are still the same. Taking courses, practicing. I think the real value of AI tilts more towards those that already know, meaning they can find answers quicker, they can find solutions easier, they have access to more resources to solve the same problem that they're dealing with. So yeah, I don't think AI does any radical change to the learning process, regardless of what you're learning. But I think for those that already know, AI definitely helps them to do things better, brings in more efficiency, brings in speed, and also points them in more directions where there might be more resources that they're not aware of. So that's what I think.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that, I would like to go back to what, when we started, we talked about how important logic is in data analytics. And I know a lot of people these days have outsourced reasoning to AI. AI could pretty much reason for you these days. Now, considering how important reasoning is when you have a data, don't you think AI would help people make those decisions faster? So when you explain the kind of data you have and instead of sitting, say, 6, 7 hours thinking of what you could do to a data, maybe a bot could help you figure it out in 10, 15 minutes and say, what about this? How about that? Do you think that's a possibility?
So for you to get the correct response or the exact answer you need from a data using AI, the amount of effort you put into structuring the question to ask the AI is probably way more than the amount of time you spend actually doing it yourself. Because for you to get the answer the way you want it, your question has to be structured exactly the way it has to be structured. Like it can be very tricky, to be honest, because most times when you can't just ask ChatGPT something casually because it will answer you the way it thinks is the correct answer. So sometimes it depends on what the question is. If it's a simple you want information, so if you're looking for information about something, I think it's easy, it's straightforward. But if you're trying to build something, solve something, it's a bit more tricky because it's not you. AI is only going to try to understand what you're trying to explain. And it can only try based on the level of explanation that you give it. And in most cases, there is no way you can completely explain your problem to perfection for AI to then respond to you back with perfection. It's almost impossible. So the amount of effort you put into the back and forth sometimes it's what just rolling up your sleeves and getting it done yourself.
Good. A lot of data analytics training focus on Excel, Power BI, and SQL. Are these the most important things you need to learn to become a successful data analyst?
I wouldn't say they're the most important. They're not by no means the most important. They're just the fundamentals. Everything else is sort of on top of that. So if you understand how SQL works, you can transfer a lot of that knowledge into data warehouse, for example, into data engineering. So it's all built on the same sort of architecture, except it's done differently. So for example, you went from having physical servers and physical databases to now having cloud databases. It's still the same concept. It's just how we do it now is different. So those are like the core fundamentals. I think what Excel really teaches you is logic. I think that's what Excel teaches you. Excel forces you to program a problem in your head logically. So I think that's the real learning in Excel. The ability to think of a problem and how to address it using Excel. But for SQL, Power BI, I think with SQL is like the key to many does. There are so many other parts of data that are different to SQL, but you can draw parallels from. So for example, in SQL, you have a concept called primary key and foreign key, where you connect like data tables, share relationship. In Power BI, we have that in the data model, where we are connecting tables to establish relationships. It's the same concept, but just doing it differently, using different tools. So those three things sort of give you like a solid base that you can build upon. Excel, I repeat, Excel teaches you logic, not the formulas are you expressing your logic. If you don't have the logic, the formulas are useless. So Excel teaches you logic. That logic you can transfer into things like Power BI and SQL and even beyond. So yeah, they're like the fundamentals that you need, not because they're the most important. No, they're just a good place to start.
Thank you very much for that. Data analytics and data engineering generally has always been on the list of shortage or in demand sort of skill sets in the UK. And a lot of people still complain they can't get job. Why do you think this is?
There are so many reasons why you might not be able to get a job. So how do I put it? The job market is, and don't forget, CV is assessed by somebody, and most times it's up to what they think about your profile. One person can look at your profile and think, nah, not good enough. And another person will be like, wow. There are many things that it's not black and white. There's no like clear answer as to why. Because even me with all of my experience and everything I'm saying, I get rejections. It's just the nature of how these things work. Does that mean I don't know what I'm doing? Absolutely not. So yeah, it's not an easy question to answer. But all I can say is you just have to keep trying. But then if you think you're getting rejections for far too long, then maybe you just go back and change something again. I do that a lot. Like I make a lot of tweaks. I'm always applying for jobs, by the way, even when I don't want. There's no time I'm not applying for jobs. Even if I don't want the job, I just apply. And one other thing that I would say regarding job is maybe just, I don't know if you have a question about CV later, but let me just drop it there. What I recommend to people when they want to do a CV is they should not, don't use any templates. Don't take anybody's CV. Don't start from somebody's CV. Yeah, start from a blank document. Start from a blank document. Start from Word, empty. Because don't edit a CV. When you edit a CV, you're not doing the thinking work that is required to build a good CV. You're just updating. Start from a blank Word document. Don't edit anybody's CV. Don't take anybody's template. What that does is it forces you to think about the things you've done and the things you've done in those roles. What you need to understand is that process of thinking, that's your interview preparation already. That's you preparing for an interview. You just don't know. But when you edit CV, you just tweak things, you've lost that part of that preparation that would have happened naturally. But when you start from a blank page, if you have 2 pages to go to fill yourself, to sell yourself on a CV, you will have a lot of thinking to do. I promise you. You have 2 pages to go. You would look for things that would help your case. And by the time you do all that, the things that you did not think were important before, they've come to memory and they've registered. And that entire process has actually prepared you for your interview, because when you go to interview, they ask you a lot of questions about your CV. If you were editing, you might struggle. But if it came from your head, there is no way on earth you struggle to answer those questions. And so that's the one tip that I would like to give people. Start from a blank page. It's hard. You might not be able to fill up 2 pages, but if you even fill up 1 page, trust me, you'll have opened some part of your head. You'll have unlocked some memories that you might never have touched if you didn't do that. And that prepares you for your interview.
Awesome. Before we round up this section, I would like to, what's one important thing you think we should have talked about today that would help anyone listening that I probably haven't mentioned?
Patience. I think many people are a bit too aggressive in their ambitions, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what that does, it can make you impatient very quickly, and then you think maybe this thing is not for me. The thing might be for you. It might just be the way you're approaching it. I think It's good to be ambitious. It's good to be aggressive in your ambition, but it's also good to be patient to yourself. It's very important to be patient to yourself. These things take time. These things take time, just like every other good thing. So if you're trying something, you're hitting your head on something, and for some reason you don't seem to be getting the results that you want, it's not always the case that you're not good enough for it. It's just that sometimes you just have to keep knocking the door and maybe increase the pressure, tweak, do one or two things, keep trying, but give yourself a lot of grace. Do the work and give yourself a lot of grace. They go hand in hand. If you do all the work and you don't give yourself grace, you're just going to be frustrated because you think after everything I've done, I'm still struggling. That's not going to help anybody. If you do all the work and you give yourself grace, even when things are not coming the way you want, don't feel like you've wasted time. Just give yourself grace. Keep trying. Stay positive, and at some point it will click. I genuinely think like 70% of the job process, I think it happens in the mind. I genuinely think that. I don't know how to explain it using data. I don't know have any research to point to, but I think it all starts with the mind. For example, if you're not looking for a job and you're applying for jobs casually, you hardly ever get a call back. Nobody's going to call you. Nobody will even answer you. I don't know how to explain it, but it happens. But if you're really looking for a job, like you really need a job, you will force the hands of the nature to get so
Tilting your way,
so,
yeah.
so you get, and you would see things on your CV that you'd not have seen before, like because now you're zooming in, you're locked in your head, and things that maybe you'd not pay attention to before will start to make more sense. So I genuinely think 70% of the job process is in the head. It's a mindset, and also that goes into interviewing. There's a way you go into an interview room and it will be as if you're the one interviewing them. It's all in the head. It's a mental tussle. It's psychological battle. If you win that battle, you're good. So give yourself grace, work hard, but give yourself grace, because when you work hard and you don't give yourself grace, then it's a highway to frustration, and that there's nothing good that comes out of it. So
Yeah, I know. I like that you talked about that interview bits for a sec there. And to be honest with you, I completely agree because I have realized that, and I know it took me many years to realize this as well. There is something psychological about
but
interviews,
there is
and I
there is
probably don't know how to explain it to put it down properly. But I realized that it got to a point, and I think confidence had a lot to do with it. I got to a point where interviews to me were like chat sessions. Initially, interview used to be like
but that's
where you
what they
sit
are.
upright.
But that's
Yes,
what
sir.
they are. That's what they are.
Exactly.
They are not
But for you to be
assessments.
able to explain that to someone to say, guy, you need to someone,
Just
especially
relax.
someone desperately looking for a job, they
Yeah.
would not see it from that point of view. I'm chatting with the interviewers, asking them about the environment, their infrastructure, because now I don't know if it's because I'm not desperate or if I've just gotten to that point where I've realized it finally that interviews are actually chat sessions, and they are looking at a lot of other stuff apart from the technical skill set. Do I want to work with this person? Is this someone that would go well
Exactly.
on my team? Especially if the hiring manager is there, he knows he's going to deal with you for the next couple of years. He wants to know what's your interpersonal skills like, and yeah, I know it's difficult explaining this to someone who is like
Yeah. I
really,
mean,
really
I
looking for
I
a job.
prepped someone for an interview recently, and I kept hammering that you must show personality. Forget all the Power BI and the SQL. You have to show personality. You're not a robot. You're not AI. So when you go there, you have to show personality. I said they are going to interview many of you, and you don't want to be another candidate. You want to be the one they remember. So how you will do that, I don't know. What you will say to make them remember you, I don't know. But guess what? I think she even went too far in taking my advice. Because when she got there and they asked her, do you have any question? Guess what she asked them? She said, am I going to get the job? After an interview. And after the interview, when she told me, I was like, are you crazy? Like, and both of us were like, that can go either way. It can be good or it can be bad. Guess what? She got the job.
Wow. Because that
Because
impression was always going to be there,
if
like that lady.
if you think about it, I said you want to be the candidate they remember. Now, we want it to be for good, but also they can remember you for bad. In our case now,
Yeah.
obviously they will remember her, but we don't know whether they remember her for good or for bad.
Yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
she asked the question, she said the guy just laughed and is like that he has never heard somebody ask him that question before. So in our case, it worked. And thankfully, we can laugh about it now. But sometimes that's not the case. But again, the point is show personality. Like you want to be the person they remember and not just another candidate. Again, if you say it like that, bringing it to life is obviously more difficult, but that's how I can put it really. Yeah.
Thank you very much, David. I think that's very useful information. Now, quickly, I know we're running out of time, so I'll skip through. I have a lot of, people talk about some certain things they mention, and I like you to either debunk if it's a fact or a myth. So, for example, someone says you need to move abroad to have a successful career in data analytics. Is this a fact or a myth?
It's a myth because I had a successful career in data analytics in Nigeria. So it's not a fact.
There aren't enough opportunities for data analysts in Africa.
Absolute nonsense. Data is spiraling out of control. So the more data you have, the more analysts you
But
need.
do you think organizations in Nigeria are investing in like data analytics and getting business intelligence out of data
Yes, they are
as
because
much as they do here?
yes, they are because they're investing in systems to improve operations, to improve efficiency. What you then get in return is those systems are data magnets. What happens to that data? You have to analyze. So in their bid to optimize processes, they are getting systems. What then happens with the systems is they are not just optimizing processes, they're also collecting data. Something has to be done with that data. So by all means, there will be an end to them. Absolutely.
Okay. AI and automation will eliminate most data analytics job.
I doubt it. Eliminate. I mean, you can't eliminate it because there are many problems that are not really structured that come from businesses. So there are many problems that come from businesses that even the businesses did not plan to have those problems. There are questions they ask that they did not prepare for. So I think we're still a few years from that, but it won't eliminate. It will enhance. It will optimize. It will make it more efficient. I don't think it eliminates it's not self checkout. It's not self checkout machine. So yeah, the business problems are not
Maybe until we get AGI, but yeah, I
because
think at least for now.
think about this. Think about this. Do you think if all businesses are using the same AI to do all their analysis, now what is going to set them apart? What is going to set them apart? If everybody was using the same AI capabilities that can do the exact same thing, so what's going to make a Nasdaq better than a Lido, for example? What's going to set them apart? So
Yeah, well, fair enough. That is also where AI, agentic AI is if AGI, if we eventually get to AGI, say in 5 years' time, where we have artificial general intelligence, I think then that would be a different ballgame because it would be able, even though it might be the same model, but they will still reason differently. It's gotten to that point where it's capable of reasoning on its own without, that data where you have to pre-train it with, which is different from what we currently have today, where you have to train it with certain data.
the point is, if Asda can do that, Lido can do that. Now, how are they different?
But if they get the result, would they still want to employ data analysts who would pretty much come back to do the same thing? If they get what they actually need and they're able to make proper business decisions out of the data the AI is giving them.
So it's not a static need. It's not a static demand. It's not as defined as people want to think of it as. So most of the data analysis work is scattered work. It's not organized.
Not structured.
It's no. Most of the problems you face there's no pattern. No. Is everywhere, like is really scattered. So that might make it a bit more tricky, to be honest. And where there's disorder, you need a human being. And in most cases, there is disorder. And the disorder is not because they don't know what they're doing. It's just because they find themselves in very difficult situations that they just have to find a way out of it. So I think you're still, I may be wrong, but I still think there's still a huge need for that human presence there, because again, it's human beings that run these companies. Your CEO is not going to rely on AI for a presentation. I don't think we're there yet where CEOs of banks will be so comfortable with just typing what they want into it. No. These are people that are struggling to accept remote working. Do you understand?
Yeah.
These are people that want you to come back to the office because they don't think it makes sense to be working from home. You think they will all of a sudden just give up everything and say, no, what, let's just use AI. See, for example, there's the company, is it Klarna or something, that went full AI early? Like they went
For their support team, yeah,
they
I hear
went
Klarna
they went
100%.
and they've been
support for-
rolling back aggressively. I think that they haven't
Wow.
got afford because they're struggling, because the numbers, people are not even paying back. They went like head on, like head start. They went full on and they're rolling back. That should tell you something. They are rolling back despite the fact that there's advancement in the field. So, meaning they got in early, they should be reaping the rewards of the advancements. But instead, they're reversing. So that should be a
something
warning.
that machine can still not fix about.
Do you understand?
human.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that should tell you something. Even some businesses now advertise that when you call our customer service, you speak to a human being. What are they trying to tell you? It's not the same.
Right. Yeah. Because to
It's
be
not the
honest, I'll
same.
be pissed as well if I have to speak with AIs all the time
Exactly.
and
So
not an actual human being.
and guess what? 2 years ago, like AI will replace all the customer service. Okay, they've done that, but now people can tell the difference, and people don't like it. So something has to be done. So I think where AI would do a lot of heavy lifting, it's probably not where we think it will. To be honest, I think where the real magic would happen is in healthcare. Just mark my words. I think that's where the real madness of AI will come to life. Not in all these petty things you are dealing with now. It's in healthcare. You say.
Interesting time ahead, and I think that's also good news for data enthusiasts. People are just coming in. Don't worry, AI is not taking the job anytime soon. It might take it in the future, but
There's still a lot to do. There's still a
Yeah.
lot to do.
Okay, I've got a couple more, but to be honest, I think we've really run over time. So I'll just ask one last one, which is say it's impossible to get hands-on analytics experience without working for a big company.
It doesn't have to be a big company. You can get it working for a small company. But I understand that question because with big companies, you have more data, you have more problems, you can learn more. With small companies, you don't have big problems, you don't have big data, so your learning is sort of capped at the level the company is at. You can learn, but obviously the scale of your learning can only be dependent on the scale of your problem. If you're dealing with small problems, you learn small solutions. If you're dealing with big problems, you learn big solutions. So, for example, there are businesses now that have no business talking about a data warehouse. Why? They don't have enough data for a data warehouse. Small business, small problems. There are businesses that no database can hold their data now. They need the data warehouse. So big business, big data, big problem, bigger solutions. So you can't disconnect the two. It is what it is. But again, the big problems and the big solutions, the solutions actually come from small problems. It's the small problems that they add up together to give them the big solutions. For example, you talk about data warehouse and all the cloud computing and everything. It's the fundamentals in your regular SQL database that they've scaled up to big data. So it's still interrelated. It's just the environment will determine. It's as simple as that. But it's not that you cannot learn. It's just you cannot learn beyond what the company has to teach you. Yeah.
Interesting. Before I let you go, David, I have a closing tradition where I ask my guests a question, and it's very simple. With everything you know today, if you could go back 10 years in time, what would you change? Would you change anything? The way you've learned, the way you've maybe done your work, keeping it around your career and everything? With everything you know today, would you have done anything differently career-wise?
I don't think so because I'm happy with where I am. So I don't think I should have to be somewhere that I'm not. I don't think I'm out of place. Do I think I can be doing better? Absolutely. I would always think that, even if I'm the richest man in the world. So that's not a reflection of what I think of my now. It's a reflection of how I think. I would always think I can do better. So where I am has nothing to do with that. So right now, as of this minute, I can't think of anything I would have changed. Are there mistakes I've made in the past? Absolutely. But do I regret them? Not necessarily. For example, I didn't graduate with my mates in university. I had an extra year. But no part of me actually regrets it, to be very honest. Like, because I don't think I missed out anything by having an extra year. Okay, they went to NYSC before me. Okay, they started working for me. Okay, did I really miss? I didn't miss anything. If you think about it, like, so yes, my first day in uni was really bad. My first GPA was like 1 point something. Like, that's bad.
Yeah.
But I still finished with a 2-1. So again, so if you look at it from that angle, the extra year was worth it. At least I waited an extra year. I was able to fix up, and then I got like 2-1. If I graduated my mates, I'd have finished like a third class or something, which would have been probably a regret compared to the extra year. So I don't really have regrets. I have had good experiences and bad experiences, and I think there's something to learn from all of them. So as of this minute, I don't think I would have changed anything. And maybe I'm just being naive, but I can't think of anything right now.
Interesting position, David. And before I let you go, finally, if people want to contact you or reach out to you or connect with you, how can they contact you? How can they connect with you? What platforms are you available on?
Twitter, you can email admin@devdaddy.tech. Yeah, those two should be fine actually. I'm not hard to reach. That one I know. Like, I'm not hard to reach.
We'll put your Twitter handle on
Yeah,
in the description of the video.
I'm not hard to reach for if it's that one. Yeah. And if you go on the academy website as well, there's actually a WhatsApp chat button there. So if you click on that chat, you're talking to me directly. It's not AI, it's me. So if you send a message to the academy,
you've not outsourced your support to
AI. If you send a message to the academy, I haven't turned off auto response because I want to be the one to respond. So if you go on the academy website and you send a message on WhatsApp, you are talking to me directly. There is no handler, it's me. So at least for now. So that's it. So
interesting. That's it for today, guys. Thank you very much, David, for joining.
For this, thank you. I actually had fun. I enjoyed it. So thank you.